Hi everyone, and welcome to another Destiny Movie Night Hangout. And tonight we are going to discuss the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, and it tells us about a story based on true facts, and it is about Chris Gardner who finds himself struggling to pay his bills, pay his rent, and then he turns homeless and has a 5-year-old child to take care of, while at the same time struggling to be stable at work. So this is a very deep story, and the whole movie has a very important message. And in this movie hangout, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the different patterns that we can find ourselves in when we face situations of change, and how we can deal with those, and how we can become better, and we can help ourselves to not go into the giving up patterns that sometimes our mind takes us to. And for tonight's conversation, I have two guests with me. So I have Ingrid from the Netherlands. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi.
And with me, based in London, we have Joe.
Hello, everyone.
And just before we start, I would like to remind everyone that you can send us your questions or comments during the live session by using the Q&A app on your Google Plus page. Right, so my first question for you, Ingrid, is what was the key moment in the movie that resonated with your life, and why?
It is a while ago that I have seen the movie, and a few years ago, I think, and I've seen it 2 times or 3 times. And what was actually resonating through the whole movie was, which is of course about myself, that we often only start changing when we do not have when we do not have a choice anymore to do different. So only when we are really faced with no other choice, then we start changing ourselves or changing the situation and pushing ourselves because we have to. And yeah, that was what at that time was resonating within me through the movie, and also what I have seen while walking the process now with Desteni, which is all about changing ourselves, that I often wait before I have no choice anymore, or yeah, start a little bit too late with changing, and I slowly start changing that point into starting changing before there is no choice anymore. So actually, to more walk the prevention or walking it back to prevention, and to change because we are able to change in a very short way.
Thank you, Ingrid. And you, Joe, what was the key moment in the movie that resonated with your process?
I think what resonated a lot with me was a great part of the movie where he's in a constant fight, let's say, to get his life stable. And this constant tiredness, there's this immense, like a marathon he's going through. And it's interesting that the movie is called The Pursuit of Happiness, and how our lives here in the system is that constant fight to get something, to achieve something, so that we can, in some way or another, stabilize our lives and get that happiness that we desire to have. So that resonated a lot with me. That kind of, I kind of felt tired in a way because of his constant struggles that he was facing with, all the aspects, with losing the house, being homeless. I've never been homeless, gladly, losing his wife. So all those things kind of make me tired as I was watching it. So I can resonate with that point, a lot, because with things that I'm at the moment doing and that I've been facing, where I have to, that's kind of what I feel, that I'm constantly, in a way, fighting the system, or fighting, more than anything, it's fighting my pre-program, which means that I have certain things within me that actually do not benefit my application and my living. So I have to transcend them to make sure that I get to my happiness. So that's what resonated a lot within me.
Thanks, Joe. I also felt tired while watching the movie. Tired in the sense of, like, it was always coming, like falling, and I was feeling that experience within me of being in a constant struggle. And I actually wanted to ask you, Ingrid, now, why is that? And if you face this as well, we tend to absorb the problems and being always so focused on the problems that we leave no room for solutions. Have you faced this point before?
Yes. What I see is that that I or we actually did not learn so much to bring up solutions, to come up with solutions, but actually only learned, or I actually only learned to look at the problem. And when I see the problem, I focus more on how I created it, and I see that, and how it is actually a consequence. So I'm then again going into judgments, or I tend to go into judgments, or judging myself or judging others, how this problem could have arisen. And actually, instead of looking at the point from where we are now and then find a solution and how to walk that solution. And of course, it is important to see that we created it and that it is a consequence that we have to solve. But it's not supportive to keep on looking on judging or finding someone who did it, be it myself, be it another. Then the focus should not be on that, but the focus should be on looking for the solutions, and the judgments and things are to introspect and forgive and walk through. So it's actually that we did not learn it. I would say I did not learn it.
Cool. Yeah, I can see that as well. And the fact that when we are so concerned about the problem, then we also, and as you said, we go into self-trust, self-distrust, because we are just thinking about how we are blaming ourselves and judging ourselves, and we don't even give ourselves the time to do better or to change what we have already done. Yes.
Yes.
And Joe, do you have anything else to add on that from your experience?
Yeah, I think we very easily become obsessed with the experiences that we go through, and it becomes all that we see. It's the experience, either of frustration or anger or fear or judgment, and it's only when you're able to kind of realize what the experience you're going through and that it's not actually helping you. You have to look past the experience, you have to look past the feeling, and make sure that you take the actions to correct your life, to correct the problems that you see, and for that you have to look at solutions. So being obsessed with the experience will take us nowhere, and as we can see if we look at the world.
Yeah, and Joe, for example, in the movie, you could see, okay, we're talking about the pursuit of happiness as if it's something like a message of hope. However, when we're talking about here, we're also saying that what is lacking is the action. So instead of like putting ourselves in the back seat and just waiting things to change or to improve, we actually have to move ourselves, to walk, to say, okay, I need to change these, and then you actually do it. So can you share an example in your life where you had no choice rather than walking that change? Like as Ingrid was saying, that you learned, or maybe not, but you have actually face the point where you had no choice rather than changing in that moment. Can you relate to that where you are now?
I think I can't pinpoint anything in my life where I can say I didn't have a choice. But I can see points in my life where I have given myself the choice of not having choice, if that makes sense. I said to myself, okay, this is enough. And I said this to myself because I could see where the consequences would have led me. So it's in a way as if I realized that I had no choice but to change because I could see the outcome. I could see the writing on the wall, that if I keep on going this way, this is where I will end up, and that's not going to benefit me or those around me in any way. And therefore, I told myself, okay, stop, it's enough. I choose to have no choice and to walk a correction. So I've gone through that, fortunately, never to the point where, consequence hits me and then there's nothing I come to. So.
Thanks for sharing that. Ingrid, do you have any other practical tips? So Joe was saying that he can stop himself and actually have this, like you can see how you can project. If the problem continues, then obviously you want to prevent that. What else have you been doing on your side in order to apply that prevention and change?
To apply prevention is for me actually when to see how I first created the point, and I have seen that when I really understand the point and I've seen the point and have forgiven the point, but when I really understand the whole point and everything related to it, then actually I have forgiven myself. So that process goes hand by hand, forgiving, understanding, writing. And only when I really understand and so forgiven the point, I will simply not create it again. So for me that is the most practical and complete solution actually to prevent creating it again, because when I have not really understand it, then I will create part of it again because I have to firstly see it, and if I don't see it I cannot forgive myself, I cannot understand it, so I cannot change it, and so I cannot prevent myself from it. So it is about understanding the point and forgiving the point within myself, and of course the process of writing is supporting in that, to lay out the structures and everything related.
Absolutely, and from my experience, and also bringing the movie back to the discussion, is like what we see as well is the problems will happen, and if we're not aware that we are creating those, that we actually are responsible for whatever happens in our lives, then even though the problems are there or the circumstances, we have those consequences around us, we don't see them as indicators. Whereby, at least in my process, what I've been noticing is that any problem that arises in my life, it works as an indicator of, okay, what is that I missed? Or why is that this point is not grounded in me, meaning I am not yet aware of every single action that I'm doing that is creating that end goal that is not what I want. So when we have a clarity within us of what we want, where we want to go, and also what we don't want and where we don't want to go. And in this movie, for example, what I noticed is like it started like in this at this place, and then it was always going down, and it's like it couldn't go worse. It's like you couldn't expect a worse situation than that, because you lose everything until you actually. But at the same time, in that character that Chris Gardner, well, it was his life in the end, we see that there is this inner strength of always keep going, of not allowing him to give up. Well, he had at some point a breakdown where we saw him like crying and letting it go. But for example, those moments are key moments as well for us to actually slow down and stop. So perhaps, Joe, what I wanted to ask you, and you as a male, because we see that sometimes it's kind of different when how a male reacts to a problem. How do you face when things are, nothing works in your reality? How have you been dealing with that point? Like, your world is falling apart, and what do you do, practically speaking?
Well, my world fortunately never came to that point of falling apart. So I can't really...
But an example, you see what I mean? Like when something that you are working on and it doesn't work.
Okay.
Like, how have you been working with your mind? Because...
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So the tools, some of them have already been shared, is obviously... so when I'm trying to deal with a point that it keeps on repeating, so I'm in the form of a cycle, looping the same thing. What it helps is, like Ingrid said, to write it down and look at it, look at all the points, because if you don't understand what is happening, what is the cycle, what are all the steps within the cycle that keeps on perpetuating, keeps the whole thing cycling, then it's going to be very hard to step out of it and stop it. One of the things that I could see within the movie that were essential for him to keep going, like Joanna said, was his strength and his persistence. So for me, that has been a key point or skill, if you want to call it, or characteristic that I have developed, and that in some way or another I had already within me, but as you nurture it, you become, your persistence increases, your strength increases. And these things really help, because I mean, I've realized what is the option that I have, and the other option I have is not going to benefit me in any way. Therefore, I have to keep on pushing, and that's one of the things that you could see Chris Gardner doing. Actually, his strength. He kept on going to the point where he could see weakness in others, and that's why he called his wife. He said, "You're weak," because she just couldn't deal with the whole thing falling apart. And he knew that he had to stay strong if he was to get himself out of that situation. So it's very important that you develop that strength within you, and there's ways to develop it, and there's support. You can ask people for help, so that's obviously one of the ways. So it's characteristics that you develop for yourself that actually help you to get through these difficult points in life.
Cool, Joe. It's exactly that. Like the topic of tonight's hangout was like, who can we become? And because it is a process of change. And Ingrid, what I wanted to ask you now is about this expression of, for the new to emerge, the old must go. Can you relate to that in this, from your experience about the process of changing? And for us to develop these new patterns, like as Joe was saying, the pattern of persistency, the pattern of self-trust, how have you been able to let go of those past patterns that just take you into the opposite direction?
I have, in the last 3 years, really seen how the old actually must go for the new to emerge, and this is actually where we all start when we start walking this process, that we start walking through all the so-called old points within ourselves, or actually the programmed points, or the points that we are educated and raised up in. And these old points are they are programmed within our mind, and they are also integrated within our physical body, and also through this we have created them within our physical lives. And so our situations around us are reflecting the old structures, the old points. So our whole life is actually constricted within the old, within ourselves and without ourselves. And what I've seen is that at some point we all become one by one aware of that this is not how it should be, and that we will be able to do it different, or that it should be able to do it differently. But we only see this from a mind point, so to speak. So we do not really understand how it is so deeply integrated within ourselves, within our lives, within our physicals. And then you start walking through the old points, which I have experienced as very tough, because you want to do it different. You see it must be possible, but you are not yet able to do it differently. So yeah, first it's really facing all the old points, and this gives related to this are a lot of resistances that we created, or things that we want differently. Or things that we created as wants, as needs, as desires, and then we have to let go all the attachments that we have made as these wants, as these experiences, as it wants, as needs, as desires, emotions, feelings, to the old things, and we think that we want the old. And but we also know that we can do it differently. So it's really a conflicting situation. And I know after walking this, or while walking this through, then slowly this wants, needs, and desires that are only based on what I want, on myself, on self-interest, are slowly moving through a starting point of let's say it, a self-will, and which is taken into consideration what is best for all. And in the end, that is also what is best for me. So it has to go from what I want, from my own self-interest, to what I will as self, as what is best for all, and which is best for me in the end. And I've also seen that while after walking that through with the tools of writing, self-forgiveness, self-introspection, the whole process which takes a long time, or a lot of effort, let's say that, then it comes together at a point. And then what I want is what I will, or my self-will becomes what I want. And so then a point that I resisted before is suddenly not a point that I resist anymore, but it is what I want and what is best for me and what I will and what is best for all. And that is where the new one emerge, actually.
I see what you're meaning with it. It's like an alignment of a direction that you want to give it to yourself, and then you walk through each resistance we are limiting ourselves to achieve that, whatever that is. We know it's like the best for us, but then at the same time there's lots of conflictuous thoughts and resistances and everything that attaches to this past me. And also because we don't, many of us, before we came across the Desteni tools, we didn't know how to deal with our thoughts, what to do with them, and how to correct what we didn't like about us, and we didn't even know why, but there are certain patterns that we know that if we keep on doing them, it's not going to take us nowhere. And that is also the point of direction. While I was listening to you, I could see this point of having this direction, and that's what we see in the movie. This guy, he has a vision of what he wants for him and for his son, and he doesn't stop until he gets it. And at the same time, he keeps living his principles, and that's also very important because even though he was aiming at achieving his career as a stockbroker or a career in the system, at the same time he knew he could value money, or he could value what his son wanted, and he was able to also give that education through the struggles that he was living in. And this takes me to another question that is for Joe. At some point in the movie, Chris was looking at the people and he was saying, these people are so damn happy. Why can I not be like them? So what do you have to say about this perception and image of happiness that we have created in our imagination, and then we actually feel frustrated because we're not like them? But what do you have to say about this? Did you also notice that within you?
Well, to the point of happiness, at that moment in the movie, what you see is all those people in front of the stock exchange, something like that. And I presume that those people are the ones that work there, which means the people that have money. So there's this equation of happiness equals money. So, and in the movie, that in a way is demonstrated, wherein you actually have him trying to stabilize his life, and you can't have happiness in this reality if you don't have enough money to have a comfortable life, because everything will fall apart. You can't eat, you can't be sheltered. So money, in a way, it is the path to happiness, but it's not the ultimate happiness, if that makes sense. And I mean, if I look at the word pursuit, I see suit, which is something that you dress on. So you have to change. You have to put a new, let's say, character. You have to develop new characteristics for yourself to make sure that, for example, you're able to be effective in the system. It could be discipline, persistence, strength, determination, direction. So all those things that you can see in Will Gardner. Is it Will Gardner? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris, Will Smith, Chris. So he developed all those things to make sure that he would be able to get to the money point, which is what would get the point of happiness, or provide a foundation so that he can then pursue his happiness goal.
But if we look at, just to continue on that point, can we talk about a self-honest happiness, where you're dealing with yourself, but you are not, you're still living your principles, because that's what he did, right?
Yes.
He knew what he wanted, and for example, when he was at some point, he went to this cab, and then at the end he didn't have money to pay to the taxi driver, and he was really sorry. He didn't do that on purpose, and maybe later on he actually paid the guy back because it was not his principle, wasn't his skill, he wasn't to do harm.
He hadn't had a choice with that situation.
Yeah. So that was also the point, but thanks for sharing that. And we have about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to remind everyone that is watching this live session that you can send us your questions or comments by using the Q&A app. So we look forward to receiving your questions. And the other thing that I'm curious is, Ingrid, when in moments of change and transition, sometimes we have like these back chat voice, like we want to change something, but it's like, oh no, you shouldn't do that, or no, that's too dangerous, oh, that's too risky, don't do that, and all these inner conversations that we develop within us that are actually limiting us, our actions to move forward. So when you have this mind shouting these thoughts and self-defeating thoughts. How have you been moving from fearing to change to actually changing?
There are a few different things actually that one can do. One is that I talked about in the beginning, that I see when it is really strongly coming up, then I did not understand the whole point, so I have to investigate it again, maybe forgive some aspects, some dimensions of it to better understand it. And when I'm totally clear on it, then I will start walking it. That is one dimension. It can also be that I first have to walk in to face the fears, so to speak, because there comes a moment that you have applied the writing, the forgiveness, the whole introspection part, and then you have to push through, or to walk through the changes actually in real life. So to see that actually there's nothing to fear about, and we can only develop the self-trust in that, the trust that we don't need to fear if we have walked through and seen and proven to ourselves that we can do it. So that's also a dimension on it. And another thing is that it can be related to memories or programs that we do not even see, that we just take for granted actually. So this is who I am, and maybe even someone else has to say to me, but is it really who you are, or maybe you can pass that line actually, that maybe it's not who you really are, but only who you think you are. So there are some different things that one can do about it. But what I did see is that in the moment of really fear, it helps me to allow myself to feel, to experience the fear, and not to push it away, so that I can feel it really inside, to apply forgiveness on it, or just to be with it actually, to become equal to it, and then I can change it. Because if I am not doing that before, then in the moment when I actually need to change, I'm not busy with what I need to do, but I'm busy protecting myself against the experiences that are related to the fear. So I'm busy with a whole other thing within my mind. And as long as I'm not allowing myself to experience it inside, or actually to become equal to it, then I'm busy with the patterns in my mind, and then I cannot walk the change in real time. So that's actually what needs to be done before the change can be walked.
That was a very clear description. I can definitely see that. Joe, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think you summed up pretty well. So
Cool.
Yeah, because actually it's almost like a homework. Like, we have this fear, we know that there's like this invisible wall that we want to walk through, but it's like something is like gluing us to our seats, and we cannot take off, and until we kind of we allow ourselves to be here, present, and to ask those questions you were mentioning. And are you going to add anything?
yeah, I mean, fear only exists to stop you from realizing who you are. Once you push through the fear, which is an energy, and you get to the other side, you actually realize things are not as bad, and the fear was pointless, really.
And it's also a point of courage. So, like in the movie, Chris, he had to embrace this new moment in his life where he was like carrying all his stuff, and he was courage enough to kind of almost make a story out of it. So, for example, when he went to meet the other guy in the club or to watch the football with the guy, he expanded his own abilities because it was probably the first time that he was in that neighborhood. He had to, well, first take his son with him, so he was also like, he was putting everything into that meeting. Like, he wasn't holding himself to anything because he didn't have anything to hold.
Fake it until you make it. That is the kind of
Yeah.
experience you went through.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah, and I also see
yeah.
fear. It's actually our thoughts within ourselves. So then we are holding on to thoughts that we can investigate. Actually, when we bring it back to basic, it's very simple, but the experiences are not so simple within the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, how we define ourselves, right? Like, imagine if in the character, he never defined himself as weak. He was able to walk through that. However, I mean, certain experiences of our own environments where we grew up, our backgrounds, we do have some points in our lives that we define ourselves according to that. So it's really, as you were saying, really a point of identifying those personalities. And one thing that I wanted to ask you, Ingrid, regarding your previous answer, what do you mean by standing equal to the fear? This,
Say it again.
for the audience to know a little bit more, what do you mean by standing equal to the fear? Like, when you see that you want to change something, but there's something holding you back. What do you mean by standing equal to that in order to move on?
It is how I apply it is that I allow the experience within me and that I'm not protecting myself to not feel the experience. So when I let it flow through me, so then you get mostly an emotion of pain or sadness or all the experiences, the emotions that we do not like to feel inside ourselves. Mostly it are emotions in this case. And when we allow to feel it within ourselves, then we can actually release it firstly and then apply self-forgiveness on it, on what we see that is coming up. And this process is actually, I call it standing equal to it, because then only we integrate it with ourselves. That's maybe that is clearer. We integrate it again because we separated firstly ourselves from that experience, and then we allow to experience it inside and then release it. So it's integrated again. The energy is released, and the physical parts that are connected to that patterns within ourselves is, yeah, how can I say, it's a bit free from that energy. So and the separation has stopped actually.
Right, like a vulnerability to it.
Yes.
My experience is that you can only direct something if you're equal to it. So if you have an experience and you're fighting it, if you're resisting it, it will remain here. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yes.
So unless you're able to see it for what it is, and in that sense become equal to it, equalize yourself to it, which means you embrace it, you look at it without judging, you look at why is this happening, why is this experience taking place. Only when you understand it, which means the point of becoming equal to it, then you can direct yourself in a different way, where you do not allow that experience in this instance to control you and stop you from moving.
Yes. Yes, not judging it. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes sense. And also the fact that a lot of the things that we try to hide in our society, like the only moment where he cried was when he was hidden in the toilet. That's when he opened up himself, and his son was not even seeing him. But like we judge in our society those moments, even though those are moments where we are opening it to ourselves. So that's, I think that's a key takeaway from this hangout is the actual, there's no magic here. If we want things to change, it's actually an effort and a self-willingness to like grab the opportunity and walk it and make sure that we are creating that. And I thought that this movie was a very interesting story to share tonight and to use that as a starting point that open up so many points that we discussed tonight. Guys, we are, sorry Ingrid, do you want to add anything just before we close our session?
I only want to point out again, Joe already spoke about it, that the process we discussed here shortly, and of course the point that is very important here is the money issue, because we need more equality within the money issue to be able to walk this process. So they are very related to it, and that is also coming through in the movie, because he is at pursuit actually for that one job where how many persons are after it? There are really a lot. So that means that the other ones do not get it. So that's really the inequality pointing out, and what effort he should bring in to come to the point of to be able to have a dignified life actually in that case. So not to forget that point also.
Thanks, Ingrid. Absolutely, like no one should go through that in order to have a dignified life or in order to be able to feed their children. It's just at the moment is the nature of the system. And again, it is also our responsibility to be able now to bring the solutions that we discussed tonight to whatever we're doing in our lives. So I hope that the audience can take these suggestions with them and apply this living action and living change in their own lives. And just before we stop, George, do you have anything to add tonight?
I mean, we said many more things about many things, but I think we covered quite a few points that will be helpful to the people. So.
Okay, so I would like to thank you guys for joining the session. Thanks for your inputs, and thank you everyone for watching. And next week we'll have another movie to discuss, and please come along and bring your questions with you. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.